Welcome everybody to this episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring tech leaders from all across the globe to talk all things tech to help us in our wonderful industry. In this episode, I am very pleased to have Derek Boman from Socratics, and he's going to be sharing his insights and his expertise with us with all things to do with tech and running a business. So without further ado, Derek, why can't I just hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself, give us a little short snippet of where you started from to where you are today.
Hey Gary, thanks for having me. So, like you said, I'm the co-founder at SocraticsAi, and we'll get into what that's all about. But I've been in technology now for 15 years, building software, helping people solve their problems through design and product management and marketing in a variety of settings. But where I find a lot of passion is in the FinTech space, the financial technology, and helping people make sense of their money. So done a number of things, but wear a lot of hats, as they say, and yeah, excited to be here.
Brilliant. So one interesting thing you said there is helping people with their relationship with money and helping them with their money. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means and where you're coming from with that?
Yeah, so my background in training is as a UX designer or user experience designer. And what that's primarily all about is how do we have empathy with our customers or our users to understand what are the struggling moments that they have and interview them and do research to find out, like, okay, what are the pain points that are really irking you or that are just causing friction in your life, and how do we solve that with really good product design or really good intuitive experiences? And finance is one of those areas that has a lot of those kind of irks and pain points and frustrations, and it literally, like water, kind of permeates every part of your life. If you don't get your money right, your family relationships may not be right, your just levels of stress, your health. It impacts so many different areas. And so where I kind of came to in my career about 10 years ago was into finance, into FinTech, and realized that there was a big opportunity using my training as a designer to make experiences better. I mean, how many people love logging into their bank? Probably not very many. and I've kind of made it my goal of, like, where is this overlap between finance and business and user experience design if I can make that experience just a little bit better, then likely it's going to have a cascading ripple effect through that user's life or that persona.
Absolutely. And, as you say, people don't realize it, but their relationship with money is such a strong thing that, they say most divorces, most arguments are based upon money, with it or without it. When it comes to, on the other side of things, when it comes to people passing away, not being able to access those funds, whether it's inherited, there's a whole plethora of challenges which comes from just having that money around or not having that money around, and then obviously having that relationship with it on a day-to-day basis. So for those who are not familiar with Socrates, can you tell us what is it you actually do and the problems you actually solve for people?
Yeah, so at Socratics, just kind of building on that idea a little bit further, where I've worked in the personal finance space with households and consumers, and now we are building a platform that is built for private capital market firms. So think boutique investment banks, private equity firms, investment management, or small CPA type firms that are helping their clients access capital markets, access M&A, raise money, debt equity financing. So just like you were just saying about how for a consumer household, with divorces, with stress, with all of those things, a small business that is just a founder trying to exit, trying to, retire and has built a business and now wants to ride into the sunset. Like, how do those small businesses access that exit or that comfortable retirement? They go to an investment bank, a private equity, and they say, hey, here's my financials, here's everything about my business, now go find potential buyers. And what Socratics does is helps those investment banks or those private equity firms evaluate that business. Using generative AI, we're able to look at that company's historical financials and project out within just a matter of minutes a forecast model, link it up derive certain key metrics that'll be important in the sale of that business. And today, it takes a lot of analyst time, a lot of really tedious grinding away in Excel, in PowerPoint, to put together those pitch decks or those financials. And we want to streamline that process using artificial intelligence.
But it certainly seems like a fantastic project and practice. So you're literally, I think when we were speaking off air before, you're taking what will take someone weeks to do, and it typically weeks to formulate everything together, do the reports, as you say, put the data, and you can do that in what, a day, 2 days now, or is it less than that?
So we take something that could be days and hours down to, or rather days and weeks down to hours and minutes. So wow. We can have them upload, even if it's just like a call transcript with the management team of interviewing their CFO and understanding the ins and outs of that business, transcribe that video call using AI, pass that into a large language model to summarize the ins and outs of that business, and using some prompt engineering and some other platform engineering that we've designed, create just an overview summary of that business. What are its products? What are its services? Who are its competitors? Things like that. And then take its QuickBooks balance sheet and P&L and project out, like, okay, what does this business look like in 3 years, 5 years, so on. And today, that's a lot of copy paste with from a PDF into an Excel document, and then write out the formulas. It's very error prone, and any kind of step along the way could introduce human error. And that's what AI is really, really good at, of looking at large data sets or complex data sets and finding the patterns, finding the nuances, the errors, and validating on those. And so we think there's a lot of efficiency gains that can go in what has traditionally been a very kind of, how would you say it? Like, it's a business that hasn't changed in decades, right?
Yeah, and you've managed to turn that. So that being said, how are your ideal customers? In fact, who are your ideal customers? I know, again, we talked about this earlier, but could you tell us who would be your ideal clients, and what do they get out of it for you?
Yeah. So our ideal customer would be a boutique investment bank or a private equity fund or a accounting firm. Basically, firms that are either have minimal analyst staff, or that staff is just very overwhelmed and has, there's never enough hours in the day. You hear all these stories of investment bankers working 80, 100-hour weeks. There's a reason for that. It's like, it's a grind. It's a hard business to be in. And if we can make that a little bit easier on them, or to cut out a lot of the kind of back and forth, or a lot of that kind of tedious grind, to find the errors, to spot the challenges with that business, or help them project out to maximize at the end the deal value, then that's like our ideal customer. So not the big kind of Wall Street banks, but the kind of more boutique, regional or local sized investment banks, private equity, investment management, CPA firms. Those serving the small business, or serving kind of mid-market type transactions and deal making.
Gotcha. So I want to come back to AI, because you've obviously done tremendously well with AI, and it continues to grow from that. So I just want to park that for a little bit, and we'll come back to that. But I want to talk a little bit about you, and where you came from. So why entrepreneurism? Obviously, you've got a passion for helping people. What drew you to entrepreneurism?
So that started at a very young age. So my dad was an entrepreneur, a very unlikely entrepreneur. He was a software engineer, back in the 80s and 90s. And I saw him at 9 years old join with some partners at his firm and start their own business. And he was the technical co-founder that developed their initial product. And he wasn't the type of, archetype person that you would think of as an entrepreneur, very quiet individual, very kind of mellow personality, but nevertheless, like I saw him at 9 years old. I went to his first office down in a basement, and there's just 5 guys crammed in this little basement room, and it just felt really exciting to me.
Yeah.
And we had a small Christmas that year, and I was old enough to remember it and appreciate it, and grew up around it to see where that business actually flourished, and they grew it into something pretty substantial. And I always thought, everyone looks up to their dad or thinks like, oh, that, they have those people in their life that they look up to. And I always thought, well, that, like, I could tell that was a lot of hard work, but man, how fulfilling to see like a business come to fruition, and especially if you're a builder of things, like you build software, you build businesses, you build customer relationships. And so I'd say that started very, very early on for me.
You had the bug. You got bitten really, really at a very, very young age. And it's amazing the impact parents can have on entrepreneurs, especially if they're entrepreneurs before. I'm just listening to your story there, and it reminds me of my wife. My wife's been in tech, and she's had her own company there for 25 years. But her dad was exactly the same as your dad. He's what, 84 now. He still codes. His brain's still going. He just still loves coding, keeping his brain going. But she tells me the stories when she was growing up, just like you, down in the basement again. He's out there, he's grinding and he's creating and stuff like that. And he would never get, the only time he ever come up was obviously late to have his meal and then go back down to the basement again and start cranking it out. But it is what you see grows. And that fulfillment of it. So I love that story, Derek.
And then funny enough, like I have a 9-year-old, and I was 9 when my dad saw that, and I see my son come down to me in the basement, and now I'm in the basement doing it, and can't that be something that building a business also just be a gift to as a parent, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So being an entrepreneur in today's world, we know that things aren't always easy. It's never a straight line, where we start and where we want to go. Either there's lots of full summits, or there's loads of different avenues that we can take, or challenges that happen. What are the kind of challenges that you've been faced and got past with growing your company?
Right. So there are definitely ups and downs. People say it's like a roller coaster, and that's definitely true. And up and down in the same day, even from the afternoon to the early evening, things can change like that. But it's also part of the excitement of it. Every day is a little bit different. It's not the kind of corporate grind where it's every day looks like the last. That's definitely not the case when you're building a startup. And I'd say that the phases of challenge that you go through is, first off, like, is there even promise to this idea? And so starting off, my background is in customer discovery, or I follow a framework called Jobs to be Done, which is all about, okay, customers, they don't buy products, they hire them to do some job in their life. And so what is that job? And you have to discover what that is by interviewing them, by asking them questions, by just trying to get inside their mind or inside their day-to-day work and understand what that is. And so that's the first stage of how do we know that there's a real problem to be solved here, that there's actual pain. And then the next is, okay, can we address that pain? Do we have the team needed to build a solution that addresses that pain, and that is a solution that someone is willing to pay for? So that's step 2 and step 3 of can we build it? So assembling the team, we took a couple months to find the individuals that we have on our founding team. We've got a great set of founders from different parts of the country. I'm in Salt Lake City. My co-founder Tim is in the Bay Area. We've got a couple people in Chicago. And luckily, in these days of remote video conferencing, we can create a business that way. We're not all just crammed in one basement, although there's some days where I kind of wish that we were. So I'd say those are kind of the ups and downs of, do we have the right problem? Do we have the right team? Do we have the right product? And some days it feels like, yeah, we've got all 3, and then other days it's like we've got 2 or we've got 1, but you figure it out and you just move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there'll be people listening here who are, it's starting to embark upon their journey, or they've got what they've built their team together like you actually have, and they're probably at this stage, like almost every entrepreneur is, okay, now I've got the product. Now I've got the MVP. We know it works. So we've got this fantastic thing that can help people solve this problem. But now it's getting it out to the market. We don't want to be the world's best kept secret. We've got to get it out there. So when it comes to marketing your company, what are the challenges you've had with that? Because that is never plain sailing either, especially when you're bringing something new to market.
Yeah, luckily we are fortunate to have in our founder and in our network of advisors a vast set of connections within our industry, and all of us on the founding team have track record within tech and within financial services, which happens to be like the audience that we're calling upon, and so we can call upon them or ask for introductions, and that's gotten us so far where we've gotten to. But we've also done a fair amount of just cold outreach of like, hey, you don't know me, but could you tell me a little bit about your business? So I'm just trying to learn. I'm not selling anything yet, but I'm just trying to understand the pain points of the industry. And thankfully, there's people willing to take those types of calls from a crazy person that they don't know that is wanting to build something in AI. And maybe they're just curious and I want to know what that's all about. And so they take a call and you understand their business a little bit more. And now that we've built an MVP, going back to those going back to just a bunch of cold outreach emails, like I'm sure the listeners and everyone gets all day, every day. Like I'm just part of that problem, I guess. But the people that are willing to take a call with us and talk to us about it, then, great. We're very appreciative of those types of things. The other is with my background in design, trying to make us look very legitimate by our branding, our website, our product design of how do we make this feel like, this isn't just a couple of people with a dream, that this is a legitimate business, that it has credibility, that has, good copywriting, good brand, that makes it feel substantial, makes it feel real. I'm a big proponent of that. I started my career in a branding agency and see kind of the power of brand. And so we've also leaned into that too as we've reached out in our go-to-market strategy.
That's a really interesting thing, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Branding, personal branding. It's not something that tech is really known for, especially until you've really made it, and there's the reiterations of it. But how important would you say for people listening who are either they have embarked and they're on their journey, rather than just the startups, how important is branding, and what advice would you give to these people when it comes to branding themselves?
Yeah, when I started my career in a small boutique branding agency, we would always remind people that your brand is, a lot of people think a brand is a logo or it's a color palette or something. And a brand is much more than that. It's not, there's a really famous book called The Brand Gap that says that a brand is not what you say it is, what you're projecting out to the market, but it's what is perceived about you by other people. In other words, your brand exists in the mind of your prospect. And you can sort of inception them through typography, color, your logo, your copywriting, your messaging that you put out there to influence that perception of you. But at the end of the day, your brand is what they say it is. And at a small business, a brand is typically non-existent because you've got a lot of other stuff you got to work on. And however, with today's low-code or no-code tools or things where historically you may have had to go out to a large brand agency or you may have had to hire a web designer or things like that, where I've been able to leverage some of those past skills in graphic design, in web design, in branding, to use tools like Framer for web design or other kind of low-code, no-code tools to pull together something that feels very real, feels very legitimate, that videos that have motion, that feels like I hired like a video production studio to put this thing together. Like, we'll get into AI, but one of the things that I think that really helps with from an entrepreneurial business building standpoint is you're just able to do a lot more with less and make it feel like, oh, like this is a brand, this is a real business, because of these tools that give you so much leverage to make you feel bigger than you are, or maybe that's the right size of what a business will be moving forward. I don't know. Like, it feels like there's this change of what even a very small business is able to accomplish.
Yeah, it has done tremendously well. It's grown tremendously fast over the last few years. And as you say, AI has enabled a lot of people to not necessarily have to go out and wait and commission these big agencies, website designers, logo designers, and it can all be done in-house in a relatively small amount of time as well. So that's a lovely segue into AI. You know, we're always talking about AI. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, AI is on the tips of everybody's tongue. But because it's still relatively brand new, it's still relatively misunderstood. You know, there is, what type of conversations are you having out there, or are you hearing about AI, and what do you think's on the horizon?
Well, the horizon feels like it's, could be next week. The pace of innovation, I've never seen anything so fast, and it seems like every week there's new models coming out, new benchmarks being set, and new breakthroughs happening. Where that's certainly a challenge to try and keep up with that pace. But the big question then is, like, what is going to be the ultimate revolution that's going to happen here? And I think we're in the very early innings, so it's hard to say exactly what that's going to look like. I think there's been a lot of investment over the last 12 months or last 2 years since ChatGPT came out in the model building side, the foundation models, the infrastructure with the chips and NVIDIA taking off in the public markets, and then in the developer tools type layer within the stack. And we function at Socratics at the application layer, which is then what actually touches a business or a consumer. And at the application layer, if you look at past technology waves like cloud or mobile, ended up accruing a lot of the value, but I think we're in the very, very early innings of the application layer. And we hope that will streamline and improve a lot of inefficiencies in a lot of legacy businesses, or we're pretty bullish on vertical SaaS within different particular use cases or industries, and ours is very specific to building for private capital markets and getting really specialized in what are the use cases for that, versus like a foundation model like Anthropic or OpenAI or Meta is building these more generalized horizontal type models and businesses, where we think there'll be a lot of little applications that sit on top of those things that are very specialized for unique use cases and businesses. And that's one of the bets that we're making. Now, in the financial services space, there's still a lot of hesitancy to adopt these things. I was at a FinTech AI conference yesterday where there was a lot of bankers and compliance people that were there, and the ones that are at the conference are the ones that are curious about it, or that they're the innovators within their large institution that they work for. But you still sense this reticence of, what is this going to mean for legal? What is this going to mean for compliance? Like when you're dealing with lending or really important financial numbers, you can't just go hallucinating, making stuff up. So how do we make sure that there's accuracy, that there's transparency in what they're doing? These are all, I would say, semi-answered questions. There's ideas about how to handle those things, but those will play out over the coming months and years.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. And I suppose what we're definitely seeing, and certainly from the people I've been interviewing and for this podcast series and for other white papers, and also for my clients as well, one of the insights we keep hearing over and over again is it's not so much of a misconception. There are misconceptions about AI, especially in the small business environment, small to medium-sized environment, but also about the security, compliance, like you say. And, how do we fix that first? Because it doesn't matter how great the actual mechanics of this thing is, if it's not compliant or it could get us into trouble, then, we'd rather stay away from it for the moment and just let it level itself back out. So how are you addressing that with people, Derek? I mean, because this is obviously a major concern with people, whether it be compliance, whether it be security. The very fact that you're in this very, very bullish, narrow niche that you're in will make you the people they go to when it comes to this. They don't have to worry about this open source. They come to you being the experts. How are you combating this fear that they have?
Well, so at the conference that I mentioned yesterday, they had the last talk had a really insightful framework, I thought, where they used an acronym that they called EPIC on how to position this, particularly within financial services. And so talk about AI, the E stands for educate. First you have to talk about like what it can and can't do.
Yeah.
and to realize like this isn't going to just suddenly make lending decisions, or it's not suddenly going to produce a financial model out of Socratics and that's the one that you use and you take to market. That there's still going to be humans in the loop there, and I think there will be for a long, long time, where it's best to think about these things as a really high-performing intern or junior staffer or assistant that is not a replacement for the experts in the field, but is an augmentation of their ability. And so use it where it makes sense, check its work. In our tool, we try to give transparency of this is why we categorize things this way, or this is why the data was transformed in this way, and allow the user to move things around if they feel like they disagree or just for preference that they want to change things up. But we've shortcutted the initial steps for them. So we didn't take it all the way. We got it most of the way, maybe the most frustrating, tedious parts of the task, but then they need to take it the rest of the way, or they need to check its work or kind of go from there. But that frees them up to do the kind of more high value stuff on the back half. Like just like calculators took out a lot of like the really cumbersome things, or allowed people to think about higher level math or higher level accounting or finance or whatever they're using calculator for. The AI is just another tool to accelerate their workflows and make them more productive in other areas. So then the next area was the P for patience and persistence. That is like, these things are still early on, like they're really smart and they do amazing things, but you know, as I've said, we're still in the early innings. Like they're going to develop, there's going to be more to happen. We as vendors need to have patience and persistence. That is like, let's show use cases, let's show tests, let's give examples of these things are getting better every day. You know, let's work in a way towards a goal of getting to a better outcome. And then I is for insights of, okay, well, what are the key takeaways then? Like, how does this, what is the output and where is the value being provided here? So show don't tell of here's what it can do, here's its actual capabilities, and then the last one is, they called it conservatism or constructive pessimism. Like these are in financial services, we're dealing with risk-based individuals, or we're selling into risk-based organizations. And so meeting them in the middle, where as entrepreneurs, we're full of optimism, we're full of like looking to the future, where, you know, we're working with individuals that work in data, that work in historicals and metrics and things like that. And it's like, let's show where it's succeeding and what are the benchmarks and what are the outcomes that it's hitting, but be transparent about where the shortcomings are, where things are still being developed, or where things, the rough edges still needed to be sanded down. And that people will appreciate that kind of transparency of like, look, if anyone's telling you that it's 100% solution, that they're lying. It's like, it's not going to get there. So don't believe people that are telling you that. There's no silver bullets. There's just a lot of lead ones that you just have. It's a lot of iterations. It's a lot of reps, and I thought that was a great framework of how to put it. You know, we just need to be aware of what it can do, what it can't do, educate our prospects on those things. But the early adopters are willing to go on that journey with you.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, so many things come to mind just by, you know, that simple epic, you know, breakdown from there. And, you know, I just want to touch on a few for the listeners and the watchers here, because when you were speaking and explaining it, you know, we get drawn into it because it's so fascinating. So I'm going to break it down, you know, in almost 60 seconds for what I got out of it, because obviously perception is what, you know, is important, and how people take that in. Education, very much a big insight in what we're hearing today. Educational-based marketing, educating the client, educating the prospect into what it actually is. But I loved what you just said there, Derek, earlier, was, yes, look, we can help you create all of this, but all that compliance stuff and security stuff, you've got to make sure you're doing your due duty too. We can only take you so far. The rest is up to you. But yes, look how much time we're saving you from that. And so that being said, then moving on to things like transparency, and like you say, we're right at the very, very beginning right now. There's going to be stuff it can't do. There's going to be restrictions on AI, and this big thing, it's going to take over the world, and AI is going to take everyone's job. And it's like, we still need that human element right from the very beginning to the very end of our transactions with AI. And yes, being open and transparent, and not trying to say this is the be all and end all of everything. Like you say, there's no silver bullet to this. We're still on a journey at the very beginning, like you say. And look. Here's an odd question. I just want to, if one imagined a ladder, all right, and there was 10 rungs on it, and 10 being we've reached the crest of the wave. What rung is AI on at the moment, in your opinion?
Like in a hype cycle?
Yeah.
We're climbing this ladder and we're about to crash back down. I mean, some people say that that's where peak hype AI. It's hard to say those things in foresight. Hindsight is a much better predictor of those things. So who knows? With most of those kind of hype cycles, though, you always see there may be a crash, or there may be a pullback, or there may be people that are disillusioned by it. But in the end, there's some promise to the technology that then makes its way through. Even when the internet, and everyone thought it was just a fad, and there was a big bubble in 2001, like, it fundamentally did transform literally everything. It just took much longer, right? It took several decades. And AI, as generative AI, has been around, or been in like the cultural zeitgeist for the last 2 years. But AI, as narrow AI or traditional AI and machine learning, has been around. That's been decades and decades that people have been developing that, and it's only kind of hit its hockey stick here in the last couple of years, where I do believe that it will fundamentally transform things just as much or more as the internet did. But it may take longer than a lot of people are predicting, but it may be much faster too. The pace of this is nothing like I've ever seen, and I hear a lot of people saying the same thing. So I'm not one to speculate on there, other than to say that in the long run, I think it'll have a pretty seismic shift.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm hearing people numbers are throwing around. So we're only on the scale of 1 to 10. We're on 1. We're not even at 1 yet. There is so much more to come when it comes to AI, and because it's consistently growing and learning from itself, and all the inputs, people like yourself and tech leaders that are teaching it what to do and learning every day what the applications it can do. This is going to be a tremendous journey to follow and watch what's going to happen with it. Well, I think, Derek, this has been a tremendous conversation. Thank you very much for your time from here. I'd like to have one last question for you. I mean, from starting off the business to where you are now, and being a problem solver that you are, and thoroughly enjoy helping people with that. If you could go back and give your younger self, a piece of advice, whether building a business, whether it be about entrepreneurship, whether it be about helping other people, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think building a business is a marathon, not a sprint, and just at a moment where I'd love my future self to come and just tell me, like, hey, keep with it, keep grinding, keep going, and I can look back at when I've been in those like shallows in the past, or when you've been in the rough patches, that eventually everything came together. Eventually things turned out. It always does. And so being in the early innings of a business, it's like I tell myself what I'd probably tell myself in the past. It's like, you made it through those times, and you can make it through this one. Just keep at it, keep persistence, keep going, keep building, and just make it a journey. Enjoy the ride.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. Enjoy the ride. It is a journey, and that destination always changes. And that's the one thing we'll always say about entrepreneurs. As soon as we think we get to a place, it's almost like a false summit. We're going to climb again, and there'll be another one and another one. So I totally agree with what you said there, Derek, of enjoying that journey. Making sure you keep on going, keep on climbing. Because it will be worth it. It always is worth it. The journey should be worth it, not just the destination. So brilliant piece of advice there, brilliant. So if people want to get hold of you, maybe they're curious about, maybe they're in the banking world, or they're in the financial services world, and thinking, hey, this sounds quite interesting. I want to look more into this. How can people get hold of you, Derek?
Yeah, so look up SocraticsAi. So it's Socratics.ai, and we'd love to show you what we're working on, or get your feedback if you're in that space. And you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best
I'll
place
make
to get a
sure I
hold of
put
me.
those links down for you as well. I'll put the website in. I'll put your LinkedIn profile link and URL in the show notes as well. So thank you very much, Derek, for your time. It's been fascinating. I've been thoroughly enjoyed listening to you, and I want to appreciate you for sharing your insights and your expertise with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, Derek. So thank you guys as well for being here. So if you've taken anything from Derek today, even if it's just one thing, and our mission here at the Growth Focus podcast is for you to take one or more nuggets from our thought leaders, from our tech leaders, to help you in your journey in tech. So if you've just got one or a number, please make sure you do one of four or all four, which is to like, to comment, to subscribe, but more importantly, to share. Share this interview out to other people who you may think will benefit from Derek's expertise and insights. So until next time, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Derek, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Until the next episode, take care, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.